Taesung stood in the vast chamber and felt small. The room was so large that clouds formed near its ceiling. Around him floated platforms holding creatures he had only seen in nightmares. Some had too many legs, others had no legs at all. One being looked like living crystal, its body catching light and throwing rainbows across the metal walls. This was the Galactic Council, and they had summoned Earth. Beside Taesung stood Hana, a military officer who kept her hand near her sidearm, even though the weapon would be useless here. On his other side was Jiwoo, a scientist who couldn't stop staring at the alien technology around them. They were humanity's first ambassadors to the stars, and they were terrified. A voice boomed through the chamber. It came from everywhere at once, translated into Korean by machines Taesung couldn't see. Humans of Earth, we are the Galactic Council. We have governed this galaxy for 12,000 of your years. We maintain peace among 847 species. The voice came from a massive insect-like creature on the highest platform. Its body was covered in black armor that seemed to absorb light. Taesung knew from the briefing that this was Chancellor Vexthar, the leader of the council. You have developed faster than light travel, the Chancellor continued. This concerns us greatly. Most species take 50,000 years to achieve what you have done in 200. You have grown too fast. You are dangerous. Taesung cleared his throat. His voice sounded tiny in the enormous space. We come in peace. We wish only to join the galactic community and learn from older, wiser species. The crystalline being spoke next. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. Your history suggests otherwise, human. We have studied your world. You have fought over 5,000 wars in the last 3,000 years. You have built weapons capable of destroying your own planet. You very nearly used them. That was true, Taesung thought. Humanity had come close to extinction more than once. But they had survived. They had learned. They had changed. We have made mistakes, Taesung said. But we have also made peace. Earth is unified now. We have not had a major war in over a century. A century, the Chancellor said, and Taesung could hear amusement in the alien voice. The Velshara have not fought a war in 30,000 years. The Korn have never known war at all. Your century of peace means nothing. Another alien spoke, this one resembling a floating jellyfish made of light. We have seen species like yours before, human. Young, aggressive, convinced of their own righteousness. They always bring chaos. They always must be contained. Contained. The word hung in the air like a threat. What do you mean by contained? Hana asked. Her military training made her direct. The Chancellor's many eyes focused on her. You will surrender all military vessels to Council authority. You will dismantle all orbital defense platforms. You will accept Council monitors on Earth to ensure compliance. In exchange, we will grant you protected species status. You will be safe under our care, Jiwoo gasped. Taesung felt his stomach drop. This wasn't first contact. This was an ultimatum, and if we refuse, Taesung asked quietly. Then we will take these measures by force, the Chancellor said simply. We have 10,000 warships. You have 47. Please do not make this difficult. Taesung looked at the aliens around him. Every one of them stared back with expressions he couldn't read. Some seemed sympathetic. Others seemed eager for humanity to refuse. But all of them radiated power and confidence. They had done this before. They knew how it would end. We need time to discuss this with our governments, Taesung said. The crystalline being spoke again. You have 30 standard days. That is approximately 28 of your Earth days. Return to your world. Consult your leaders. But understand this, the Council's decision is final. You will be protected one way or another. The meeting ended. Taesung and his team were escorted back to their ship by floating drones that never spoke. As they left the station, Jiwoo finally broke the silence. They're going to invade us, she said. No matter what we choose, they're going to take our freedom. Hana nodded grimly. The question is whether we fight or submit. Taesung stared at the view screen showing Earth in the distance. Their beautiful blue world, unaware that its future had just been decided by beings who saw humanity as children. Dangerous children who needed to be controlled. The journey back to Earth took 3 days. Taesung spent those days writing reports, reviewing the meeting and trying to find a diplomatic solution. But he kept coming back to the same conclusion. The Council had already made up their minds. Humanity would be their prisoners, wrapped in words like protection and guidance. When they arrived at Earth, the United Nations had already convened. Leaders from every nation filled the assembly hall. Taesung's report was broadcast to the world. People watched in horror as they learned the truth. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and their new neighbors wanted to put them in a cage. Prime Minister Kyung-hee spoke first. "We must consider diplomacy. Perhaps if we negotiate, show them we are reasonable, they will grant us more autonomy." General Dae-hyun shook his head. "They won't negotiate. They told us exactly what will happen. We submit or they make us submit. Those are our only choices. Then what do you propose?" Kyung-hee asked. "That we fight? They have 10,000 ships. We have 47. It would be suicide." "Maybe," Dae-hyun said, "but it would be our choice. We would die free rather than live as pets." The chamber erupted in argument. Some supported negotiation. Others demanded military preparation. A few suggested hiding, taking humanity's ships and fleeing to the far edges of the galaxy. President Yuna stood. The room fell silent. She was young for a president, only 45, but her eyes carried the weight of the moment. "Dr. Jiwoo," she said, "you have been quiet. What does science tell us?" Jiwoo stood nervously. "I have been working on a project classified based on quantum entanglement theory. If it works, it could give us a weapon that bypasses their shields. But it's untested. It might not work at all. And even if it does, it won't be enough to defeat 10,000 ships. But it might be enough to make them think twice about attacking?" Yuna asked. "Perhaps," Jiwoo said. "If we're lucky. If everything works perfectly. If they don't adapt," Yuna looked around the room. "We have 28 days. In that time, we will do two things. First, we will continue diplomatic efforts. We will show the Council that we are reasonable and peaceful. Second, we will prepare for war. We will finish Dr. Jiwoo's weapon. We will train our forces. We will build defenses. And when the Council comes, we will give them a choice. Accept us as equals or learn why humanity survived 10,000 years of our own violence." The vote was nearly unanimous. Humanity would not submit. Tae-sung watched as the assembly dispersed. Leaders rushed to their militaries, their scientists, their strategists. In 4 weeks, everything would change. Either humanity would join the galaxy as free beings or they would die trying. He thought back to the council chamber, to the confidence in the Chancellor's voice. They believed humanity was helpless. They believed Earth would surrender rather than face annihilation. They were about to learn the truth about humans. When cornered, humanity didn't surrender. They fought. They adapted. They won or they died fighting. Tae-sung returned to his office and began preparing for the next meeting with the council. In 28 days, he would return to that vast chamber, and he would tell them no. The galaxy was about to meet humanity. The real humanity, not the peaceful explorers they hoped to find, but the species that had clawed its way to the stars through blood and determination. The council had made one critical mistake. They thought humanity's violence made them primitive. They didn't understand that humanity's violence made them survivors. And survivors don't go quietly into cages, no matter how pretty the bars. 28 days until the council learned what humanity truly was. 28 days until the galaxy changed forever. Zelmoth spread his tentacles across the data console and reviewed the intelligence report one final time. As the council's chief intelligence officer, it was his job to assess threats. The humans were barely a threat at all. Their ships are fast, he reported to the assembled council, but their armor is thin. Their weapons use simple kinetic projectiles and basic energy beams. Their shields are at least 3 generations behind our standard technology. A single council battle group could neutralize their entire fleet within hours. Chancellor Vexthar clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. And their ground forces? Primitive, Zelmoth said. They still use chemical propellant weapons in many areas. Their soldiers are fragile, requiring food and rest. They have nothing that could threaten a council occupation force. The crystalline High Arbiter Quarren chimed softly. Are we certain? Their technological progress has been unusually rapid. Rapid but unfocused, Zelmoth assured her. They waste resources on redundant systems and competing designs. We have unified, efficient technology refined over millennia. They have barely left their cradle world. There is no contest, the council voted. 200 warships would enter the Sol system and enforce compliance. It would be a simple operation. Humanity would see the fleet, understand their situation, and surrender. If they resisted, a few destroyed ships would convince them. The council had done this 12 times before with rebellious species. It always worked. Admiral Krethnax was chosen to lead the fleet. He had fought 40 campaigns and never lost. As his ships prepared to depart, he reviewed the intelligence data and felt confident. The humans would surrender. They always did. What Admiral Krethnax didn't know was that Commander Sujin had been expecting this moment for 5 years. Deep in the asteroid belt, hidden among millions of rocks and ice, were 57 installations that looked like mining stations. They were not mining stations. Each one held enough firepower to destroy a cruiser. Sujin had built them in secret, using resources diverted from approved projects and disguised in bureaucratic paperwork, so complex that no one questioned the numbers. Earth's military had learned from history. Every time humanity encountered something new, they prepared for the worst. When they achieved faster-than-light travel, the first question wasn't, "Where should we explore?" It was, "What if we meet something hostile?" Sujin activated the defense network. 57 hidden weapons platforms came online, their sensors watching the edge of the solar system. Waiting. At the research facility in Seoul, Dr. Min Seo made the final adjustments to Project Prometheus. The weapon used quantum entanglement to create missiles that could phase through solid matter. In theory, they would pass through shields and armor like ghosts, detonating inside enemy ships. In theory, they had never been tested in combat. Will it work? Her assistant asked nervously. Min Seo didn't know. The calculation said yes. The simulation said yes. But reality often disagreed with calculations. "We'll find out," she said. Captain Bora sat in her fighter cockpit and reviewed her squadron's orders. They were outnumbered 200 to 47. Traditional tactics would fail, so they would use unconventional tactics. Human tactics, remember, she told her pilots. "We don't fight fair. We fight to win. Hit hard, hit fast, and disappear. Make them chase ghosts. Make them waste ammunition on shadows. Make them afraid." Her pilots understood. They had trained for this. Every simulation, every drill, every exercise had prepared them for fighting a superior force. Because humanity knew from experience the bigger enemy usually won, unless the smaller enemy was smarter, faster, and willing to do whatever it took to survive. On the 28th day, Admiral Krethnax's fleet entered the Sol system. 200 warships arranged in the traditional council formation, a wall of battleships at the front, cruisers on the flanks, destroyers screening for fighters. It was a formation that had won 1,000 battles across 3,000 years. Ambassador Tae-sung received the message from the council fleet. "This is Admiral Krethnax of the Galactic Council. You have had your time to consider. Surrender your military forces now, or we will take them by force." Tae-sung sat in the command center deep beneath the Himalayas. Around him, screens showed the council fleet approaching. 200 ships. It looked hopeless, but appearances could be deceiving. "This is Ambassador Tae-sung of Earth," he replied. "No, one word." It was enough. Admiral Krethnax gave the order. His fleet advanced. He expected the human ships to cluster around Earth in a desperate defensive formation. Instead, they scattered. 47 ships broke in different directions, moving with precision that suggested extensive combat experience. That was odd, Krethnax thought. The intelligence report said humans were disorganized. Captain Bora led her squadron of 6 fighters into the asteroid belt. 3 council destroyers followed, confident they could eliminate the small craft easily. Bora waited until they were deep among the asteroids, then gave the signal. The asteroids exploded. Not the rocks, but the hidden weapons platforms disguised as rocks. Thousands of missiles launched simultaneously from 57 different positions. The 3 destroyers never had time to react. Their shields overloaded, their hulls ruptured, and they died in the cold silence of space. Bora's squadron was already gone. Racing toward the next target, Admiral Krethnax watched in shock as 15 more ships reported weapons fire from unexpected positions. The humans had mined the entire asteroid belt. No, not mined. They had built hidden fortresses. How long had they been planning this? "All ships, defensive formation," he ordered. But it was too late. The human fleet wasn't trying to defend Earth. They were attacking. Commander Sujin led a group of 12 human cruisers in a direct assault on Krethnax's right flank. The council ships turned to meet them, shields raised, weapons charged. The humans fired missiles that the council point defense systems easily destroyed. Then the humans fired again. And again. They seemed to be wasting ammunition. The Council ships didn't notice the second wave of missiles approaching from below until it was too late. These missiles didn't explode against the shields. They passed through the shields like they weren't there, phased through the armor, and detonated inside the ships. Project Prometheus worked. Dr. Minseo watched the battle data from her laboratory and allowed herself a small smile. Quantum entanglement weapons were now a reality. The Council's shields were useless. In 43 minutes, the battle turned from a certain Council victory to a disaster. 67 Council ships were destroyed or crippled. The human fleet had damaged 5 ships, 0 destroyed. Admiral Krethnax couldn't believe what he was seeing. His fleet was being torn apart by a force 1/4 its size. The humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. They used the terrain. They laid traps. They coordinated across vast distances with impossible precision, and their weapons simply ignored his shields. All ships retreat, he finally ordered. Full speed. Exit the system, the Council fleet ran. The remaining 133 ships fled the Sol system in chaos, leaving their damaged vessels behind. Captain Bora's fighters harassed them all the way to the edge of the system, destroying 3 more ships before letting them go. When the Council fleet was gone, Commander Su Jin broadcast a message to all human forces. Stand down. We won. Across Earth, people watched the battle on their screens in stunned silence. They had expected to lose. They had expected their fleet to die bravely but pointlessly. Instead, they had won. Humanity had defeated the Galactic Council. In the command center, General Dae-hyun turned to President Yuna. They'll be back. With more ships. We can't win forever, Yuna nodded. She knew the truth. This victory was temporary. The Council had thousands of ships. Earth had 42 left after the battle. Eventually, numbers would win. But for now, for this moment, humanity was free. Ambassador Tae-sung stared at the tactical display showing the retreating Council fleet. He had told them no, and humanity had made that no stick. But what came next? Would the Council accept defeat? Would they negotiate? Or would they return with such overwhelming force that even quantum missiles and hidden fortresses couldn't save Earth? He thought about Admiral Krethnax fleeing in his damaged flagship. The Admiral had expected an easy victory. Instead, he got a lesson in why underestimating humans was a fatal mistake. Humanity had been fighting wars for 10,000 years. They knew every trick, every tactic, every dirty method of killing that worked. The Council's doctrine was 3,000 years old and designed for fighting opponents who followed the same rules. Humans didn't follow rules in war. They followed one principle: win. The galaxy was about to learn something about Earth. When humans said no, they meant it. And they had the weapons, the tactics, and the sheer stubborn determination to make that no cost more than anyone expected. The Council believed Earth was helpless. They had learned the first truth: Earth was not helpless. Soon they would learn the second truth. Making Earth fight for survival was the worst mistake the Council had ever made. Chancellor Vexthar stood before the Galactic Council and tried to explain the impossible. His voice, usually confident and commanding, now carried uncertainty. Admiral Krethnax's fleet was defeated. 67 ships lost, 133 damaged, 0 human vessels destroyed. The chamber erupted. 847 species all spoke at once, their voices combining into a roar of disbelief and anger. No emerging species had ever defeated a Council fleet. It was impossible. The intelligence must be wrong. The Admiral must have made a mistake. Something must explain this. High Arbiter Quarren silenced the chamber with a single chime. Admiral Krethnax has provided full battle recordings. The Council Intelligence Office has reviewed them. The data is accurate. The humans won. She displayed the recordings. The Council members watched in silence as human ships moved with precision, as hidden weapons platforms tore apart Council vessels, as missiles phased through shields that should have been impenetrable. They watched the Council fleet retreat in chaos while human fighters pursued them like wolves chasing prey. A member of the Velshara spoke, their watery voice filled with fear. How is this possible? They have been in space for less than 3 centuries. How do they fight like this? Chancellor Vexthar had been wondering the same thing. He had assigned his best analysts to study human history. What they found disturbed him deeply. The humans have been at war for 10,000 years. Constant, continuous warfare. Every advance in their technology came from military need. They have more combat experience than any species in recorded history. Then they are exactly what we feared, a Quarren representative said, its silicon body resonating with concern. They are a warrior species. They must be contained immediately before they threaten the entire galaxy. With what? Another council member asked. We sent 200 ships. They destroyed or disabled a third of them. How many more ships must we lose? The council descended into argument. Some wanted to send a massive fleet to crush Earth immediately. Others wanted to negotiate. A few suggested orbital bombardment from long range, destroying Earth's infrastructure without risking more ships. The debate continued for hours with no resolution. On Earth, the mood was different. People celebrated in the streets. For the first time in human history, all of humanity united in joy. They had faced an alien empire and won. Signs appeared everywhere. Humanity first, Earth stands free, we said no. But in the government centers, the mood was grim. General Dae-hyun spread tactical displays across the table and showed President Yuna the truth. We can hold for 6 months. Maybe 8 if we're lucky. After that, the Council's production capacity will overwhelm us. They have thousands of worlds. We have one. Ambassador Tae-sung leaned forward. Then we can't wait for them to attack again. We need to make them afraid to attack. What are you suggesting? President Yuna asked. We take the fight to them, Tae-sung said. We strike their shipyards, their supply bases, their logistics hubs. We make this war cost them so much that continuing becomes politically impossible. General Dae-hyun smiled grimly. Aggressive defense. Hit them where they feel safe. Make them defend their own territory instead of attacking ours. Dr. Ji-woo spoke up nervously. That will make us look like the aggressors. The Council will use it as propaganda. They'll say we're the dangerous species they claimed we were. They already think that, Tae-sung replied. The difference is now they'll also fear us. President Yuna made the decision. Prepare strike forces. Target only military installations. No civilian casualties. We're not monsters. We're survivors doing what we must to stay free. Commander Soo-jin led the first strike. 30 human warships crossed into Council territory and hit 3 major shipyards in rapid succession. The facilities were building the next fleet to attack Earth. Soo-jin destroyed them, along with 700 ships under construction. The attacks were surgical. Human forces jumped into a system, launched quantum missiles at predetermined targets, and jumped out before Council defenses could respond. In and out in minutes. No prolonged battles. No wasted effort. Just pure, efficient destruction. Captain Bora's fighter squadron specialized in supply convoy raids. Council fleets needed fuel and ammunition. Those supplies traveled in slow, lightly defended cargo ships. Bora's pilots destroyed them by the dozens, leaving Council battle groups stranded in deep space without resources. Engineer Tae-hyun led infiltration teams that were even more dangerous. His people infiltrated Council computer networks and sabotaged automated defense systems. Entire defensive platforms turned their weapons on Council ships. Mining stations exploded. Communications went dark. The Council began to fear their own infrastructure. The raids continued for 3 months. The Council couldn't stop them. Human ships were too fast, their tactics too unpredictable, their intelligence too accurate. How did the humans know where to strike? How did they coordinate across light years with such precision? The Council began to suspect that humanity had been in space much longer than they claimed. There was no other explanation for this level of military sophistication. They were right in a way. Humanity hadn't been in space long, but they had been fighting forever. Every tactic the humans used came from Earth's own bloody history. The ambushes were from guerrilla warfare manuals. The logistics attacks were from submarine doctrine. The infiltration techniques were from special forces training. Humanity's 10,000 years of war had created a library of military knowledge that no other species possessed. In the Council chambers, an archaeologist named Prinzel presented his findings on human history. Every major human advancement was driven by warfare, he explained, showing images of Earth's past. The wheel was used for war chariots. Metallurgy developed to make better weapons. Chemistry advanced to create explosives. Nuclear physics led to bombs. Even space travel was initially a military competition between 2 human nations. He showed more images. Humans in armor, humans with swords, humans with guns, humans with tanks, humans with aircraft. An unbroken chain of violence spanning millennia. They never stopped fighting, Prinzel said. Not until there was no one left to fight. Then they unified and turned that same military focus outward. The species we dismissed as primitive has more combat experience than our entire council combined. Chancellor Vexthar felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Fear. Not of defeat in battle, but of what victory would cost. How many ships would they lose? How many resources would they expend? And what if they won? What if they occupied Earth? The humans wouldn't submit peacefully. They would fight as insurgents. The occupation could last centuries and cost thousands of council lives. He authorized the next fleet, 2,000 warships, the largest armada in modern council history. They would overwhelm humanity through sheer numbers. There would be no tactics, no clever strategies, just raw, overwhelming force. Admiral Krethnax, demoted but still advising, attended the planning session. He had fought humans once. He knew what was coming. They won't fight the way you expect, he warned. They'll turn your own strength against you. They'll make you spread your forces thin, then strike where you're weakest. Enough, Chancellor Vexthar interrupted. 2,000 ships cannot be defeated by tactical cleverness. The humans will face a wall of steel they cannot penetrate. Admiral Krethnax said nothing more, but he knew the truth. The Council was making the same mistake again. They were assuming humans would fight like other species. They wouldn't. Humans fought to win, and they would use any method, any tactic, any weapon to do it. On Earth, Commander Su-Jin received intelligence about the coming fleet. 2,000 ships. Her 30 vessels had raided Council territory successfully because they fought small, scattered forces. Against 2,000 ships in a unified fleet, they would be crushed. She returned to Earth and met with General Daehyun. We can't win this fight. No, Daehyun agreed. But we can make them pay such a terrible price that victory becomes meaningless. Dr. Minseo has been working on something. The Sol Station network. Every planet, every moon, every major asteroid has been turned into a fortress. We're going to make the entire solar system into one giant weapon. Su-Jin looked at the plans and understood. They couldn't stop 2,000 ships from entering the system. But they could make sure very few left. It's a death trap, for them or us? Daehyun asked. Both, Su-Jin said. Ambassador Tae-sung broadcast a final message to the Council. We did not want this war. We asked only to be left alone, to join the galaxy as free beings. You refused. You demanded our submission. You sent fleets to enforce your will. We have responded the only way we know how, by fighting for our freedom. Send your 2,000 ships. We will be waiting, and we will show you why humanity survived 10,000 years of its own violence. We don't surrender. We don't give up. We adapt, we evolve, and we win. Or we die trying. The choice was yours. You chose war. Now face the consequences. The message was broadcast across the galaxy. Every species heard it. Some were inspired. Others were horrified. But all of them understood one thing. The humans meant every word. The Council's armada departed for Earth. 2,000 ships carrying the military might of 847 species. They expected to crush humanity in hours. They didn't know they. General Daehyun stood on the lunar base and watched Earth through the reinforced viewport. Behind him, tactical displays showed the approaching Council fleet. 2,000 ships. Against Earth's 89 remaining vessels, they'll be here in 6 hours, his aide reported. Daehyun nodded. 6 hours until humanity's final test. Win or lose, nothing would be the same after today. He activated the Sol Station network, the defense system that Dr. Minseo had spent 3 months building. Every planet in the solar system lit up on the tactical display. Not just the planets, but their moons. The asteroid belt. Even small planetoids in the outer system. Each one showed green, indicating active weapons platforms. Millions of missiles, thousands of energy cannons. Enough firepower to destroy a civilization. It's ready. Dr. Minseo reported from her control center on Mars. The entire system is networked through Sentinel. That was the name they'd given to the combat AI coordinating everything. A human couldn't process the data fast enough to run a system-wide defense. But Sentinel could. Captain Bora climbed into her fighter cockpit one more time. Around her, 88 other human ships prepared for battle. They were outnumbered 22-1. In any normal battle, they would lose in minutes. But this wasn't a normal battle. The Council was entering a trap that had been months in the making. Remember the plan, she told her pilots. We don't engage directly. We're ghosts. We appear, we fire, we disappear. Make them chase shadows while Sentinel does the real work. Ambassador Tae-sung sat in the command bunker beneath Geneva and felt surprisingly calm. Either humanity would survive the next few hours, or they wouldn't. There was nothing more to do but watch and hope their preparations were enough. The Council fleet entered the Sol system in perfect formation. 2,000 ships arranged in a massive battle sphere, weapons bristling, shields at maximum. They had learned from their first defeat. This time there would be no ambushes. They advanced slowly, scanning constantly, ready for any trick the humans might use. Admiral Vin Su, who had replaced the disgraced Krethnaks, commanded the fleet from his flagship. He had reviewed every second of the first battle. He knew about the hidden platforms in the asteroid belt. He knew about the quantum missiles. His fleet was prepared for everything, or so he thought. The attack began when the Council fleet was halfway between Jupiter and Mars. Commander Sujin's forces appeared suddenly, broadcasting false sensor signatures. One human ship appeared as 10. 10 appeared as 100. Admiral Vin Su's sensors showed thousands of targets all moving erratically. Ghost projections, he announced calmly. Ignore the false readings. Focus fire on verified targets only. But which targets were verified? His sensors couldn't tell. The humans had learned from the first battle too. Their jamming technology had improved. Admiral Vin Su ordered his fleet to advance and engage anything that fired back. Real targets would reveal themselves by attacking. Captain Bora's squadron struck from above, launching quantum missiles at the Council formation. The missiles phased through the outer shields and detonated inside 3 battleships. Then Bora's fighters vanished, jumping to a new position before the Council could respond. Admiral Vin Su smiled. 3 ships lost, but he had identified a real target zone. He sent 200 ships to pursue. They chased ghosts. Bora was already on the other side of the fleet, striking again. Then the real attack began. Mars opened fire. Not from orbit, but from the surface. Massive railguns built into the planet's crust launched projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The Council shields could stop energy weapons. They couldn't stop solid metal moving at relativistic speeds. 12 ships simply exploded as railgun rounds punched through them. Admiral Vin Su ordered evasive maneuvers, but then Jupiter's moons opened fire. Then Saturn's rings, which weren't entirely natural anymore. Then the asteroid belt, which contained not 57 hidden platforms but 500. The Council had only found and plotted the first wave. The entire solar system was a weapon. All ships combat spread formation, Admiral Vin Su ordered. Engage all planetary targets. Destroy the platforms. His fleet spread out to attack the planets and moons. That was exactly what Sentinel wanted. The Council formation broke apart. Ships spreading across the system to engage multiple targets. They were no longer a concentrated force. They were scattered prey. Commander Sujin's actual fleet struck then, hitting the divided Council forces with quantum missiles and precision strikes. Lieutenant Haewan's destroyer personally eliminated 6 Council cruisers in a brilliant maneuver that became legendary in human military history. She lured them into a crossfire between Earth's orbital platforms and the lunar base, then jumped away while the platforms destroyed them. Admiral Vin Su realized his mistake too late. The humans had turned his strength into weakness. His 2,000 ships were now fighting dozens of separate battles across the entire solar system. They couldn't concentrate fire. They couldn't support each other. They were being destroyed piecemeal. Regroup, he ordered. All ships returned to formation, but regrouping took time. The Council ships began pulling back, trying to reform their defensive sphere. The humans didn't let them. Every time a Council ship tried to rejoin the formation, human fighters or planetary weapons struck it. The retreat became chaos. For 3 weeks the battle raged. The Council fleet was slowly ground down, but humanity paid a price too. Earth's orbital infrastructure was shattered by Council bombardment. The lunar base took heavy damage. Mars colony went dark after a direct hit from a Council dreadnought. The asteroid belt platforms were destroyed one by one, but the Council losses were worse. Much worse. Admiral Vin Su watched his fleet shrink from 2,000 ships to 1,500, then to 1,000, then to 700. Every day brought more losses. Every engagement cost him ships he couldn't replace. And the humans just kept fighting. They should have run out of ammunition. They should have been exhausted. They should have surrendered. They didn't. Lieutenant Haywan was analyzing Council communications when she discovered something interesting. Several Council species were broadcasting on private channels questioning the war. The messages were encrypted, but human code breakers had gotten very good at breaking Council encryption. She brought her findings to General Dae-hyun. The Council isn't unified. Some species want to withdraw their forces. They're arguing about the cost of the war. Dae-hyun understood immediately. The Council wasn't one government. It was 847 governments working together, and some of them were having second thoughts about fighting humanity. Can we exploit this? Maybe, Haywan said. If we can show them that humanity isn't the threat the Council claims, some might break away. Ambassador Tae-sung took over. This was his specialty, diplomacy. He began broadcasting messages to the Council fleet, not to the commanders, but to the individual species. We have not attacked a single civilian target. Every strike has been purely military. We fight only for our freedom. We don't want to conquer you. We want to be left alone. Is this war worth the cost? The messages were simple but effective. Council soldiers weren't mindless drones. They were individuals from hundreds of different species, all with their own thoughts and concerns. Some began to question why they were dying to subjugate a species that only wanted freedom. The Kreetok were the first to withdraw. Their delegation recalled their ships, refusing to participate in what they called a war of conquest. The Council lost 150 vessels. The Velshara followed. Then the Quarn. Then species whose names humans couldn't pronounce began pulling out. Within a week, Admiral Vinsu's fleet shrank from 700 ships to 300 as member species recalled their forces. Chancellor Vexthar ordered the remaining forces to continue the attack, but even his own military leaders were questioning the strategy. Admiral Krethnax, watching from Council headquarters, finally spoke up in an official capacity. This war cannot be won. Not at any cost we're willing to pay. The humans will fight until every last one is dead. They will never surrender, and we don't have the stomach for genocide. He was right. The Council had rules against exterminating species. They could demand submission, but they couldn't commit mass murder, and humanity was proving they would rather die than submit. Admiral Vinsu, seeing his fleet disintegrate and his political support collapse, made the decision. He contacted High Arbiter Quarren directly, request immediate ceasefire. This war is unwinnable. Quarren, who had been growing increasingly concerned about the entire operation, agreed. She broadcast directly to Earth. We offer immediate cessation of hostilities. Will humanity accept? Ambassador Tae-sung stood in the ruins of Geneva. The city had taken damage from orbital bombardment. Thousands were dead, but Earth had survived. He looked at President Yuna, who nodded. We accept, Tae-sung broadcast, on the condition that you recognize Earth's sovereignty and our right to maintain our own military forces. There was a pause. Then Quarren responded, agreed. A full council session will be convened to determine Earth's status. But the shooting stops now. Across the solar system, weapons powered down. Council ships stopped firing. Human forces held position. The war was over. General Dae-hyun looked at the final casualty reports. Earth had lost 41 ships. The Grand Chamber looked different to Tae-sung this time. The vast space with its floating platforms no longer intimidated him. He had returned to face the Galactic Council, but now he stood as the representative of a species that had earned its place through battle. Chancellor Vexthar was gone. He had resigned in disgrace after losing 1,700 ships to a species with fewer than 100. The new chancellor was a being called Mortek, a cautious leader who wanted answers before making decisions. The council convenes to determine Earth's status, High Arbiter Quarren announced. Humanity has proven they cannot be subjugated by force. But we must decide, are they a threat to galactic peace or can they join the council as members? A delegate from the Kreetok spoke first. They have shown restraint. In 3 weeks of warfare, they attacked only military targets. No civilian casualties. No war crimes. They fought only for their freedom. They destroyed 1,700 ships, another delegate countered. They have proven they are as dangerous as we feared. We should quarantine their system permanently. The debate continued for hours. Some argued for isolation, others for integration. But everyone agreed on one thing. Humanity could not be ignored or controlled. They were too powerful, too stubborn, and too skilled at warfare. Finally, Ambassador Tae-sung was given permission to speak. He stood before the assembled council and chose his words carefully. "You came to our world and demanded our submission," he began. "You saw our history of warfare and judged us primitive. You believed violence made us barbaric, but you misunderstood what that history means." He activated a display showing Earth's history, images of ancient battles, modern wars, the near-extinction events that humanity had barely survived. Yes, we fought. We fought for 10,000 years. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times, but we learned. Every war taught us the cost of conflict. Every weapon we built showed us the price of hatred, and eventually we chose peace. Not because you forced us, not because we were weak, but because we understood, truly understood, what war means. Dr. Jiwoo stepped forward and added her perspective. The Council has maintained peace for 12,000 years through threat of force. You have superior numbers and technology, so smaller species submit. But that's not real peace. That's domination. Humanity chose peace after experiencing the alternative. We know what war costs because we've paid that price. That's why our peace is stronger than yours. The chamber fell silent. The delegates considered her words. It was true that the Council's peace was enforced rather than chosen. But did that matter if the result was millennia without major conflict? Admiral Krethnak stepped forward. As a retired military officer, he had no official authority, but his experience fighting humanity gave him credibility. "I have fought 40 campaigns across my career. I won 39. Humanity defeated me in minutes. Not because they were lucky, not because our intelligence was bad, but because they understood warfare in ways we never had to learn." He displayed tactical analyses of both battles. "We have grown complacent. Our military doctrine hasn't changed in 3,000 years because it never needed to. We fight overwhelmingly superior forces against disorganized, desperate opponents. We've forgotten how to fight an enemy that's skilled, prepared, and refuses to lose. Humanity's victory wasn't an accident. It was the result of 10,000 years of military evolution we never experienced." He turned to face the Council directly. "We have a choice. We can isolate humanity and ignore the lessons they could teach us, or we can accept them as equals, learn from their experience, and become stronger. But we cannot pretend they don't exist." That option died with 1,700 ships in the Sol system. The vote was called quarantine or membership. The chamber filled with various sounds as delegates discussed with their own species. Some were afraid. Others were curious. All of them understood that this decision would change the galaxy. High Arbiter Quarren spoke before the vote. "I have existed for 6,000 years. I have seen countless species join the Council. Some were peaceful, others were dangerous. But all of them enriched our civilization by bringing new perspectives. Humanity's perspective is unique. They understand the cost of war because they've lived it. They understand the value of peace because they chose it. And they understand freedom because they were willing to die for it. These are not the traits of a barbaric species. These are the traits of a mature one that took a harder path than the rest of us." The vote began. It took 3 hours as each species registered their decision. When it ended, the result was announced. Humanity would be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with one condition. They must share their military technology and tactical knowledge with Council defense forces. Ambassador Tae-sung accepted immediately. "We will share everything. We never wanted to be enemies. We only wanted to be free and equal." The integration process took 5 years. During that time, humanity transformed the galaxy in ways both large and small. General Dae-hyun established the first Joint Human Council Military Academy. Officers from hundreds of species came to Earth to learn human tactics, not to become aggressive, but to become competent. The Council's military, which had grown soft through millennia of easy victories, began training for real warfare. They learned about asymmetric tactics, unconventional warfare, and the 100 other lessons humanity had learned through blood and pain. Dr. Min Seo's quantum technology revolutionized Council industry. Her weapons research translated into civilian applications, faster communications, better computers, medical equipment that could phase through tissue to repair damage without surgery. The technology developed for war became tools for peace. Captain Bora commanded a joint task force fighting pirates in the Outer Rim. Her squadron included pilots from 12 different species, all trained in human fighter tactics. They were devastatingly effective. Piracy, which had been a persistent problem for centuries, dropped by 70% in 2 years. Commander Sujin oversaw the construction of the first human-designed defense stations throughout Council space. They incorporated lessons from the Sol Station network, turning planets and moons into fortresses that could defend themselves. The Council's borders became stronger and more secure than they had been in millennia. Ambassador Taesung served on the High Council itself, a position usually reserved for species with thousands of years of membership. He advocated for reform of first contact protocols. No more ultimatums, no more forced submission. New species would be offered partnership, not protection. Earth itself changed too. Humans spread throughout the galaxy, sometimes welcomed, sometimes feared, but always noticed. They brought their culture, their technology, and their perspective to hundreds of worlds. Some aliens loved them. Others remained suspicious. But none could ignore them. President Yuna, near the end of her term, gave a speech that became famous across the galaxy. We did not ask for war. We asked only for the right to exist as free beings. The Council believed we were helpless, and we showed them the truth. But the real truth isn't about our weapons or our tactics. The real truth is that every species deserves respect, regardless of their size or their age or their power. We fought for that principle. We bled for it, and we won. Now we work to ensure that no other species faces the choice we faced: submit or die. The galaxy has room for all of us, if we respect each other's right to exist as equals. On Earth, at the memorial for those who died defending humanity's freedom, a simple monument stood. Carved into black stone were the names of the fallen. Below the names, an inscription. They believed we were helpless. We taught them we were human, and humans don't surrender. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see the memorial. Some came to honor the dead. Others came to understand what humanity had fought for. All of them left with a new understanding of what human meant. 5 years after the war, a new species made first contact with the Council. They were technologically advanced, aggressive, and refused the Council's initial demands for disarmament. The Council convened to discuss the situation. Some advocated for military force. They were the older members, set in their ways. But the younger Council members, those who had worked with humans, suggested a different approach. What if we actually talk to them? What if we offer partnership instead of protection? What if we respect their right to defend themselves? Ambassador Taesung supported the proposal. Every species has the right to be cautious when meeting something new. We were cautious. They're cautious. That's not aggression. That's wisdom. The Council agreed to try diplomacy first. The emissary sent to contact the new species was Commander Sujin. She understood what it meant to face an empire and refuse to bow. She understood the fear and determination of a species protecting their freedom. Her mission succeeded. The new species joined the Council as equals, without war, without bloodshed. It was the first time in Council history that an armed first contact had ended peacefully. That success changed everything. The Council began reviewing its policies. More species were offered partnership instead of protection. Military force became a last resort instead of a first option. The galaxy didn't become peaceful overnight, but it became more respectful. On Earth, Dr. Jiwoo gave a lecture to students at the military academy.